can see it. First, I want to thank the organizing committee for the opportunity to present my work on the Engraving Universal Values Conference, and I also want to express my regret for not being able to attend in person. Today, I would like to discuss a problem I encountered during the writing of my thesis, which concerns religious phenomena that has to do with the frequent omission of Minerva in what are assumed to be dedications to the Capitoline Triad. And then what does that omission tells us about the negotiation of religious identity in the provinces? Regarding the place of Minerva in the religious life of Moesia Inferior, Bulgarian historiography has been largely consistent. In a paper from 1907 examining artifacts mentioning or representing Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva and their Greek counterparts, Dobruski concluded that both Athena and Minerva were rarely worshipped in the region, especially individually, except in Nicopolis Odistrum, where the goddess appears to have played a more leading role in the religious life of the city. Todorov goes even further in his study of paganism. According to him, the cult of the Capitoline Triad in the province of Moesia Inferior focused primarily on Jupiter, or Jupiter and Juno, with dedications to them serving as a kind of shorthand for the entire triad. As exceptions, he cites only an author from Tresmis, with an uncertain reading, and another from Donna Beshovica that also includes Victoria, Vulcan, Mercury, and Fata Divinis. In a study from 1983, Modenova emphasizes the uneven distribution of dedications to the triad in both Moesia Inferior and Thrace. She concluded that apparently the local population failed to understand the political nature of the cult, but instead interpreted it in their own way. This then somehow led to the usual omission of Minerva from such dedications, with religious attention directed mainly toward Jupiter and Juno. In later years, both Alexandrov and Lungarova expressed similar views without substantial analysis. In the following decades, more artifacts linked to the Capitoline Triad were published, yet references to Minerva remained scarce. Among the more notable finds are two altars and a votive relief from Nove, an altar from Nigrianis, and a highly fragmented relief from the provincial capital Tomi that is impossible to reconstruct faithfully. Most of the archaeological evidence relating to the Triad in Moesia Inferior comes from Nicopolis Odistrum, where 3 Greek language altars and a marble base were dedicated to the deities, one even attributing traditional Greek epithets such as Olympias for Zeus and Pelias for Athena. Several scholars have questioned the existence of a traditional Roman cult of the Triad in Nicopolis Odistrum. However, the epigraphic evidence suggests a strong integration of it into the city's institutional civic structures among the local elite, professional associations, and members of craft guilds. It is plausible that the joint worship of Zeus, Hera, and Athena, unparalleled elsewhere except in Roman focus, was introduced in Nicopolis Odistrum within the framework of the imperial cult, closely tied to the official veneration of the Capitoline deities. Additional support for the cult's official status is found in the city's civic organization. One tribal division bore the name Capitoline, another was named after Athena, and others may have been named after Zeus and Hera, indicating a broader civic endorsement of the triad. An obvious question arises. If Minerva is missing from dedications to the Capitoline Triad, how can we be certain these are indeed dedications to the Capitoline Triad? Existing studies offer no definitive answer, but a hypothetical one implied by their methodology: the reliance on specific epithets. However, this explanation does not hold up well under scrutiny, as the deities of the Triad were also invoked individually. Dedications to Juno Regina or Minerva Augusta are not interpreted in the same way as those to Jupiter Optimus Maximus. Nowhere in the literature are they considered shorthand for the entire triad. Well, it is plausible that in some cases, perhaps due to financial constraints, only Jupiter was named instead of all three deities, assuming that all the dedications to him under the epithet Optimus Maximus implicitly refer to the full triad is untenable. Unfortunately, due to the sparsity of studies, it is impossible to compare the situation in Mizi Inferior to that of other provinces, but still some statistical knowledge can be gained by searching online databases. As the table presented shows, the disproportion between inscriptions mentioning all three Capitoline deities and those mentioning only Jupiter or Jupiter and Juno is consistent in the provinces close to Mizi Inferior. This widespread pattern warrants a dedicated study that is beyond our current scope. Its underlying causes remain unclear, but in the case of Mizi Inferior, it might reflect a shift in how Minerva and her domain were perceived. In truth, we're still far from fully understanding Minerva's role within the triad. The very term Capitoline triad is a modern construct with no exact equivalent in antiquity, as far as I know. The joint worship of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, Juno Regina, and Minerva Augusta on the Capitoline Hill may have been a religious tradition inherited from or influenced by the Etruscans. In contrast, Varro's testimony about an earlier cult of the three deities on the Quirinal has been interpreted as a politically motivated fabrication. Beyond such debates about origins, most modern scholars are content to emphasize the central role of the Capitoline deities in the religious life of Rome and its provinces, without delving into much detail. No clear mythological connection exists between the three deities that would justify their worship as a unified cult, let alone an official one. In the comprehensive studies of Waldheim and Dumézil, Minerva's inclusion in the Capitoline triad is generally attributed to her status as a city goddess and to her patronage of the arts and crafts, comparable to the domains of Athena. These domains, they argue, were particularly valued by the Etruscan kings, who likely played a decisive role in establishing and promoting the cult of Minerva in Rome, making it through their influence that she became part of the triad. Including Minerva in dedications to the Capitoline triad during the Principate clearly underscores her association with imperial power and centralizing political narratives. This is evident in several inscriptions from Mizi Inferior. Consider, for example, the altar from Tresmes, erected by specifically the Roman citizens of the village, or the one from Nigrianianis, where the dedicators, a father and son, both military men, explicitly state their birthplace as Ostia. These were individuals who took pride in their affiliations and identity and who expressed them clearly through the appropriate religious language. However, many artifacts from Mizi Inferior that mention or depict Minerva present her instead as a deity associated with the arts and craft industry. A striking example is an altar from Slava Cherkesa, which honors her as Minerva Mater Musarum, Mother of the Muses. The dedicator is Julius Jucundus, who was most likely an immigrant from the West. Unfortunately, the inscription provides no details about the reason for the dedication or the occupation of the dedicator. The epithet is unique and unattested elsewhere, but its meaning is unmistakable. Minerva's affiliation with the arts also occasionally led to her association with Apollo, as seen in an altar from Tajin Trace, of which I unfortunately have no picture. This connection is echoed in literary sources. According to Cicero, one of the 5 Minervas was in fact the mother of Apollo. Whether this familial link stems from a now lost mythological narrative or another tradition remains unclear, but the joint worship of the two deities suggests their association had some enduring cultural resonance. Minerva's connection to the world of crafts is most visibly expressed in Mizi Inferior through votive reliefs that pair her with Mercury. This combination is unusual within the broader Roman context. It appears more frequently in classical Greece, mainly on painted pottery, and later in reliefs from Roman Gaul and Leptis Magna, where the two gods likely function as protectors of trade and craftsmanship. An epigraphic relief showing Minerva and Mercury together have been discovered at the production center in Butovu near Nicopolis Edistrum and in the legionary barracks at Nova. These artifacts are even more prevalent in Thrace, particularly in Philippopolis, where they were produced locally. The only such relief from Mysia Inferior bearing an inscription comes from Veliko Turnovo. It is dedicated to the Greek counterparts of the deities Athena and Hermes by those around Viator, a group otherwise unknown but possibly a craft guild or a religious association. Due to the limited evidence for the joint worship of these two deities in the region and in the Roman provinces more broadly, it is difficult to determine the origin of the pairing. It may have been influenced by Greek traditions, religious practices from the Western provinces, or possibly a combination of both, as suggested by the distribution of such artifacts. In Thrace, the stronger Hellenic cultural presence may have encouraged such an association, while in Mysia Inferior, immigrants from the Germanic provinces might have played a role in popularizing it. The study of Minerva's role in the religious landscape of Mysia Inferior reveals a complex and nuanced picture that challenges traditional assumptions about her place within the Capitoline Triad and its worship beyond Rome. It has long been assumed that her cult spread to the provinces through the expansion of the Capitoline cult, yet the epigraphic evidence suggests otherwise. In some cases, her absence from dedications to the Triad may reflect a form of marginalization, perhaps due to her strong associations with artisans and craftspeople, which might have carried connotations certain dedicators wish to avoid. More importantly, however, this pattern highlights the need for a more critical approach when interpreting dedications to Jupiter or to Jupiter and Juno. The omission of Minerva may not indicate a deviation from an ideal model, but rather expose our own assumptions about how their collective cult should have been understood. To presume that the Capitoline Triad universally embodied a fixed set of shared or universal values for all worshippers risk overlooking the local variations in practice and meaning. Viewing the Triadic cult as a monolithic religious institution obscures the complexities of how official cults were locally negotiated and the distinct roles individual deities played within them. This is some selected bibliography, and I want to thank you for your attention.